Joseph watched a new movie, everyone.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
said I couldn't watch it, but you did. At
Yeah,
least
because
if
it
I'm
probably
reading these
wasn't.
transcripts right.
Yeah, it probably wasn't playing where you were. So that's cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
All
dude.
right. So what's before we get into this? What's going on with Rings of Power that I have to know? That's gonna change any sort of opinion about the show.
Nothing, dude. I just think it's I think I think
I
it's
did
going to
see.
be dead on arrival.
Yeah, I agree. I did see the was it Vanity Fair or one of those magazines did like a cover shoot for all of them, and they all look as goofy as they ever have.
Dude. It's just like, man, there's so many inaccuracies um with the show that it's like, where do you even start? Like, I know where to start, but like
Right.
I can spend hours talking about the first 30 seconds and everything they got wrong. It's kind of like listening. I don't know if you're familiar with Carson, who he is.
Not really.
Okay, so
Not
Billy
off the top of my
Carson,
head.
he's a quote unquote ancient, and I'm being very liberal with this. Ancient textual scholar, self-proclaimed, by the way, not actual.
Yeah.
And he talks about the Emerald Tablet of Thoth. I'm probably not even pronouncing that. Thoth, I think, is how you correctly pronounce it. Anyway, I listen to him talk, and I'm like, I'm not a scholar,
Right.
but I do a lot of reading, right? And so if I'm able to detect, oh wow, there's so much bullcrap spoken in this interview in the first 30 seconds, then like how much more wrong is this? And so that's the kind of thing when it comes to Rings of Power is it's like like we said it last time. We're not experts. We're not scholars. We're not, we don't have a channel dedicated to Tolkien.
No.
I've read his books multiple times and everything. And so my whole thing is, if I'm able to spot how this is inaccurate, how much more so should everyone else? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same thing we
Well,
talked about with
you would
the
think.
coof.
You would think at least with the quote unquote experts. Now, here's where I land with a lot of this now because this happens. This is happening with even stuff that I like. So it happens with Game of Thrones.
Right.
There's like these House of the Dragon accounts. I think you saw the thing that I reposted on Twitter the like last week where someone was like, well, the season finale was worse than the end of season 8, and I'm just like, no, it isn't. Like, can we not like stop doing this? Like, I know it's Twitter, and I know it's for like
Engagement.
like farming engagement or whatever, which is it's the most frustrating thing about how that. And I don't want to get into a massive rant about X and all that, but like, it's the most annoying thing about how that has changed is that like you can't. It doesn't seem like you can have productive conversations on there anymore. Whereas before, there used to be a bit of engagement there where, like, even if it came away where, like, the person still disagreed with you, sometimes you could have it went somewhere. Where,
Yeah.
like, now that's just not the case because every time I see something on there about anything, it's these, like, wild polar opinions about something, and there's not a lot of that middle ground.
Nuance.
Yeah, and it's just because that doesn't get rage bait in one direction or the other. Yeah, it's really frustrating. But yeah, I that it happens with that. It happens with Rings of Power. It happens with Star Wars like crazy. You can't. There's these accounts on there that refuse, and for whatever reason, this filters into like YouTube and all these other places where like you cannot have a productive conversation because sometimes I think some people they just don't see it. And I think everybody else, especially the people that are really, really successful, they know it's bad, but they can't say that it's bad.
Yeah.
Look at what happened
I know
to
exactly what you mean.
look at what happened to Star Wars Theory. Now he's still relatively successful at this point. Like, I mean, he's doing really well. He's not doing as well as he was when like Star Wars was kind of at its peak.
Right.
But he realized there was stuff that was wrong with it. He said it, and there's a ton of people that hate him now. Like, he's got like lawsuits going out, like all sorts of stuff because people are saying all sorts of like nasty stuff about him because of Star Wars. Like that's kind of where we're at now. And the irony of like a lot of those accounts too, man, that it's like they're like, you're the toxic ones. It's like, I think what you're saying about others is what you really mean about yourself.
Listen, yeah, exactly. It's projection, and then number two, it's like, listen, if you want to watch, if you want to like a crappy show and a crappy movie, that's fine.
Doesn't
You
make it
can
any less
find
crappy.
enjoyment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find enjoyment in movies and TV shows that are bad, but let's just be as honest as we can be and as objective as we can be
Sure.
about these TV shows and movies. I go back to it all the time. I'll probably keep saying it till I'm dead. It's like, I recognize the faults of the first Hobbit movie, even though I like it and I still enjoy it and I like to watch it. It's still, I can recognize its faults, and I don't have to pretend that, oh, hey, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
That's a really good movie. No, that's
you
not.
have
I don't
no-
have to stand for it just because it's Tolkien. It's the same thing with like Rings of Power. I really wanted Rings of Power to be really good. I wanted to be able to go into something that I enjoy. And I think so much with Star Wars, with Rings of Powers, with all these adaptations, they come into it thinking that they can improve upon the source material, and thinking, instead of thinking let's try and keep everything we can, and whatever we can't translate to the screen, then that will get rid of, and try as our best to keep to the spirit and the ideas and the themes of the author, of the original creator, right? Because that's what people
Right.
are going there to see. It baffles me that anybody adapts something to create their own story instead of trying to adapt what the author wrote, as if that you could improve on it when this person spent years and years and years in their life dedicating to it to make it to where it's a cohesive story, right? Now, I'm not talking about like, okay, once all the, again, if Amazon wanted to do an account of something that Tolkien didn't 100% flesh out, or this goes for any other IP, that's fine. But if you're going to flesh it out, it needs to be fleshed out in line with the author's spirit and
the intent.
his or her ideas, intents,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
And it's just,
Well, like
it's so frustrating because like it's annoying.
Viserys Targaryen will probably stand for us as like the thing to point to with what you just said for a long time, until we find something that is as good, or and then we'll just add it to the list, right? Like that's where that comes from, where Viserys in Fire and Blood, there's not a lot known about him, and they turned him into one of the most interesting characters in that show.
Yeah, with the help of George R. R. Martin.
Right. Now
those
they do have the
situations
help
are
of that he
few.
was alive, but he didn't, like, from the way that those interviews, it does sound like he wasn't. I don't know if it was like writing room stuff or when it finally hit the screen and he saw it and he was like, y'all did something incredible with that character.
Yes, so much so that he said he wanted to go back and rewrite him. But I think those situations are few and far between.
Agreed.
Right?
And it does help
it's
that
like,
he's still alive and refuses to
and then on
finish his
top of that,
books.
it's not like Viserys was as I understand it from others who have read the books, there are not really any characters that are fleshed out in the books. It's more of a historical accounts of the characters, and
Right.
you can pick up on some things, but it's not like they're fleshed out.
I'm curious
like
though, because like I've heard that Daemon is maybe not in Blood or Fire. Was it Fire and Blood? That there's still quite a bit known about him compared to other characters.
Yeah.
Like he had a bit more either like history that's been written
Fleshed
about
out.
him. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. But it still stands as like this thing where, well, I mean, like you could probably say we haven't. Otto is still around, so we don't know yet. But like Otto has been excellent. I mean, the show, despite how a lot of people feel about the season 2 finale, a lot of those characters have been fleshed out really, really well. They're very interesting, and it's a testament to like it is possible to take a history of like a fantasy world and turn it into something that is in line with the creator's intent. Now, again, George is still alive for now. So there's that. But at the same time, even if he wasn't, like, I think it would still be possible. It would still be possible to make something that the fans go, thank you. Like, yes, this is in line. Like, maybe we're not okay with this, or this doesn't make quite as much sense, or this is a little bit weird and maybe could have been fleshed out more. But overall, like, good job. And so like it's just not it's not an excuse for Rings of Power to have not been able to pull something off. And if they didn't have the material or didn't have the rights or didn't have whatever, they should have. They were never going to do it because they really just wanted the name recognition, but they should have left it alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
It's just Tolkien in name only, you
Yep.
know. And it just like when there's so many waves they've subverted Tolkien's intent, and they didn't try to honor, and it's just been lie after lie after lie after lie.
Y-
And we don't have to keep going on that soapbox. I mean,
You're-
anyone who has eyes to see and ears to hear can see that, you know.
yeah, and listen, we're not far away. We got what 3 weeks.
Yep. And they're doing a 3-episode drop, so you know they didn't
Yeah.
have that much confidence in it.
Yeah, agree. They clearly are trying to push this thing out pretty quickly and beat. How many episodes is it? Is it 10?
Oh gosh, I hope it's not 10. Let
Hopefully
me
it's
see.
like 8.
I thought it was 8.
I do want to tell you. Speaking of insane fan bases, I have one more story to tell you that happened right
Okay.
before we started recording.
Nice.
But you tell me how many episodes it is, and then I'll tell you this quickly, and then we'll move on to our.
It's only going to have 8 episodes.
Oh yes, so it's basically like a month,
Yes.
and we'll be done with it. Good.
Oh.
So I was just out of curiosity. I was checking some of our comments on videos because I haven't been in there in a while, and I was like replying to a few people. And dude, this Snyder fan sent me War and Peace in a comment. I haven't read the whole thing because there's no way I'm going to take the time to read the entire thing. But y'all, cut it out. Like,
He did.
dude, it's like 4 or 5 paragraphs.
I got to see this. Why
It's
didn't
the
it
fir-
show
It should be
up?
I don't know. It should be the first. It's under the Rebel Moon, a Zack Snyder masterpiece. He probably didn't even listen to it because I'm sure we were tearing into it. Because
It
he's
should
not.
be the latest one on your Twitter, you said?
No, it should be the latest one under our comments for the YouTube studio.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to read it if you want to, but I'm not taking the
Oh,
time.
I'm not doing
I'm
that.
not taking the time. To do
Freaking paragraphs long.
that.
Yeah. Got to be more
it's
concise with
ridiculous.
that.
Yes, guys. Listen. We love y'all. Please don't do that. I don't want to read all that. All right.
I'm just gonna be like, "Yep, that's too long." I hope what you said is good. I hope what you said is bad. If it's not what you want.
Rebel Moon is bad. Neither of us have any intention of watching the extended cut. Like it's over, guys. Zack Snyder, he though is a lot like M. Night Shyamalan. I think I just don't think we'll ever get rid of him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The two of them are gonna be around forever. Cause somehow M. Night Shyamalan keeps making movies.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
All right.
I forgot to. I meant to tell you. Did we ever talk about how one of the trolls in Rings of Power is based off of Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad?
Yeah. Yeah. Is that this season?
Not even the guy's actual name. They didn't. They used his Breaking Bad character name.
Sorry. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, so his actual name is Jonathan Banks, but in the show he's Mike Ehrmantraut. And they based it off of his character in Breaking Bad. I'm like, why?
Bro, that's
That
ridiculous.
And I remember Simon talking about how in season 1 they wanted Sauron to be like a Walter White.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
I think what a sad time right now.
I think that we're probably with that show entering. I mean, it's gonna be more like. Well, The Acolyte was a funny one because it felt like the defense of the show was really delayed. Like, it wasn't until about 3 or 4 episodes into it that all of a sudden all these Stan accounts and all these people started coming out saying that it's actually really good. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens with Rings of Power because it feels like the mood has really shifted towards like the show sucks. And they don't know what they're doing, and I think people have kind of been awakened to the fact that this really isn't good when you talk about it.
Are you telling me when you have a hundreds of millions of dollars, $1 billion product that it's not the greatest idea to put inexperienced people in charge of it?
Nope.
I would have never have thought about that.
There was something else recently. I mean, I guess it's just all the Star Wars stuff. It's been inexperienced people. A lot of Marvel stuff too, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know what's going. It's the weirdest thing where
Yakuza's the
like,
same thing as well. Did you
oh
see that?
god, yeah, I saw that. It's just like, y'all, can we enough? Like at this point, like you're clearly doing it just to piss people off. Like it's not even one
Don't
of
play the
like
video games.
yeah, like and if you're listen, even if you don't play the video games, like like there's enough that you can do that doesn't require because to be fair, those Yakuza games are really long. Like that would take it'd be a lot of research. Now, if it was based on a specific one, like sure, take the like I don't know. In my head, I'm thinking 100 hours, but like you can probably beat the Yakuza games faster than that. But they're big games. Like it does take a while to get through them. But like yeah, if it's based off a specific one, just play that one and look into the history of the rest of it. Like the idea of like your character and like where their background, where they're at in the specific time period of where the show is supposed to be set. And from what I read into it too was that they're not even using the story from Yakuza. Like it's literally going to be called Yakuza. Like, dude, this is like the mentality. This is what I hate about a lot of that. The mentality of it, and like, I mean, we could kind of talk about like the Borderlands thing with it too.
Mm-hmm.
The mentality behind a lot of these game adaptations is that they want the name recognition, and it's always kind of been this way. And obviously, at this point, there's exceptions, but we're still in this spot where Mario. I'll put The Last of Us in there, even though people are kind of mixed on that. And
For now,
am I forgetting another one? I know those two. Was there another really
Halo?
No, not Halo. Well, Halo goes on the other end, but it's
successful. Yeah, you're talking about that now. Yeah,
more of the like we want the name recognition, but screw the fan base. We don't care about the story. We're gonna do our own thing. We're gonna give you like things to clap at, and then to try to make our own story out of it, and go like forge our own path with the thing that these massive fan bases love. And unfortunately, Borderlands has definitely fallen victim to that. Even The Last of Us, though, bro, I am so excited for The Last of Us season 2 to come out because I'm really curious how the reaction is going to be, how they're going to do it, and I guess spoilers or can we like spoilers for season 2 of The Last of Us because I have a few friends who haven't played the games. And I asked him, I was like, so do you have any idea about what is coming? I was like, because I know, right? Like, I know I have a very intimate relationship with The Last of Us at this point, unfortunately, to some degree.
Right.
But it's so interesting to me because I'm like, how are people going to react? I've got a few other friends at work that are kind of fall into that like normie category that I bet have watched it. I need to ask them if they know.
Yeah, I like to ask people I work with their opinion on certain movies and TV shows, so I can see where they land.
Oh, dude, it's so funny talking to people sometimes about it. Where like I was talking, and we can, we're gonna get into it a little bit with Deadpool. But I asked one of the guys I work with. I was like, "Oh, did you finally go see Deadpool?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he started going on about the TVA and how much he loves Loki. And I'm just sitting there like, David, just let it be. Just let it be.
Just don't say anything.
Yeah, leave
just
it
let
alone.
it go. Be like, I hear you, man.
I'm like, yeah,
that's cool.
Like, glad you. And I'm just like, dude, it was like the worst part because my big thing. And okay, so and we'll just hit spoilers from here on out. For any of the movies that we're going to be talking about. With Deadpool, one of the most satisfying parts of that movie is like him just destroying the TVA. Like he there's like the whole opening like credits is him just like murdering TVA agents, and it's just the most cathartic thing, Joseph, because it's like yes, like this organization. Now they don't take it far enough, and it's a problem with the Disney stuff, and we'll get into it, but yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. The way that you just like you talk to people sometimes and you're like, cool.
Oh.
Huh?
I did.
Oh.
I know what you're talking about when it comes to the TVA. Sorry. I was saying oh because I've seen Quiet Place Day One, by the way.
Oh, good. We can talk about it because that movie
Yeah.
sucks. The
Yeah.
movie's real bad.
It's really horrible.
Well, do you want to start with that, or do you want to start with Ungentlemanly Warfare? Your choice.
Ungentlemanly Warfare.
All right.
You want me to tell you what my thoughts were?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the acting in it. Like to see Henry
Me
Cavill
too.
act. I like to see the guy that plays what's his name from Halo, the captain from Halo that we like, the actor. Oh man, what's his name? I'm sorry, dude.
Keys?
Keys, yeah, that plays Keys. Oh man, what's that actor's name? I really like him. Every time I see him in something.
Oh, I forgot he
Oh
was.
shoot,
Yeah.
he's in there as the prince
Oh yeah.
of that island. Oh man, I can't find this dude.
Let me see if he's in the trailer at all.
Of course, Miranda Keys is at the. Okay, so his name's Danny Sapani.
Gotcha.
But in any sense, yeah. So I like the acting in it. I thought that was fine. As far as the movie itself, it was just kind of
It's fine.
bland.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
really
like
it's really
I guess I'm
it's
tired
really
of
inoffensive
yeah,
in
and I
almost a
guess I'm
very
tired
boring
of
way.
seeing Nazis as the bad guys. Like
Yeah.
it's just
It's
it never felt like it was a bit too cartoonish. Maybe that was a bit on the Nazi side and
yeah.
on them killing
I,
the Nazis. Everything just
yeah.
happened too easily.
I'm kind of okay with that because it's sort of what they were going for. Like it's definitely I think a subjective thing where like you're like maybe it's like
Yeah,
if you
I
would
get
have
what you're
liked
saying.
it
I knew
more
that's what they were
serious.
going for.
Yeah, if you but I like kind of the goofy nature of it. I just don't. Yeah, there's some stuff and it's been a while since I've seen it, so it's a little hard to put my thumb on it at this point. But like, they were kind of It's almost like Tarantino light, and
Yeah,
so
and
it just doesn't hit certain things that a movie like this probably needed.
I think the Nazis needed to be a bit more imposing instead of a
Yeah,
caricature
yeah,
of when people, of oh, Nazis are bad guys because they're Nazis and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of over that whole deal. Maybe I need more of a serious tune type
well,
of movie for that. But
you
it's
know,
like I feel like I've just seen them as the enemies in so many movies
yeah,
that it's like you really need to. The movie needs to be epic in a different sense in
yeah.
order to make up for that
Yeah.
narrative piece. But
Yeah, maybe it's time for us to just move into a different time period for a while and let World War II sit.
I really
It's
just
been
feel like
mined
it's
to death for
used.
sure.
I think you're right. If they're gonna do it, they could have taken it up a notch rather than do
Yeah,
Tarantino light.
if you're gonna
Because if you're
go, sorry, go ahead.
like, because nobody's gonna be like, oh, I'm so bad what they did to. They're expecting the audience to be on board with anything and everything you do to the Nazis, and I'm just kind of like, oh man, some of this stuff is like even without them showing everything is gruesome. Like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's just kind of, it's like I was saying, like it's really unoffensive or like
Yeah.
inoffensive. Like it just doesn't. It is a by the book World War II movie about some heroes going to take out some Nazis. It's got
It seems like a worse version of like a step down from what's that movie you really like? The King's Guard.
Oh, the Kingsman.
Kingsman. The
I could
King's
see
Guard.
that. Yeah,
Kingsman.
yeah, I get that. Yeah, well, and like Kingsman is like very over the top and like very comic booky. It is based on a comic book, so it's
Right.
and that yeah, a conversation for another time. But yeah, they definitely really push in a little bit more with the comic book type stuff, and which is maybe what they needed to do with this. Just have it be a little more like maybe like give it some of that old school James Bond stuff where you have like kind of wacky villains like Jaws. It's like big hunking man with the metal mouth and like doing some weird things like that just to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. Because again, I think it's part of the problem. Like I think, yeah, the acting was fine. I think some of the characters are really enjoyable. There's a lot of good action in it. It just, you leave and you're like, yeah, all right. Yeah, that was, yeah, had a pretty good time watching that. Moving on. This is something I had mentioned before. Um, I would like some more stuff like this that is just kind of like, oh, cool. Like that was kind of fun to go see in the movies. Like I would almost rather be there with some things than like where we are right now with a lot of stuff. Like I don't know if it's like that's always the goal. And I don't know from a financial standpoint at net these days if you can really do that with movies. Some of that's more of a conversation about how cinema needs to change, and if we need to go back to like is there an avenue for films like Ungentlemanly Warfare to maybe not have theatrical releases but still potentially profit? And then some of that's budget. There's a lot of conversation that has to go into that.
Right.
We don't need to waste our time with, but you get what I mean, right? Like there's a need for these kinds of movies, but it's almost like stuff like this is what Netflix needs to strive for. So like,
yes,
there's a lot of like pretty like schlocky action movies on there that we've talked about in the past that I didn't like. And if they had done more stuff like Ungentlemanly Warfare, and I'm like, yeah, all right, like cool. Yeah, make some more stuff like this. Make a little like trilogy out of this that's going on Netflix and kind of just gets paid for by the subscriptions or whatever the case may be. If they kind of went in that route, there's actually another movie I think I might feel the same way about, but yeah, man, I don't hate it. I'm not like in love with it. I'd probably watch it again at some point, but yeah.
It's again, it's not terrible, but it's just kind of, I don't know if I would have wanted to seen that in the theater. Like, I definitely wouldn't have been necessarily too mad for spending money on it. Right. Like, I'd rather see more of this than what we have been getting. But yeah, it was just a miss. It was definitely, I think Guy Ritchie's other film I saw, which was from last year, The Covenant, was better.
I still need to watch that. And Guy Ritchie put out, oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind, that TV show earlier this year that I really liked.
The Gentleman.
Thank you. Which, yeah, I mean, he kind of had, like, for me, it was like, okay, Henry Cavill's in it. Guy Ritchie has already put something out that was, like, really solid this year. So kind of going in with, like, good faith or whatever, and, you're like, all right, could have been better. Didn't hate it. And now we're kind of moving on, Sort of where I landed with it. But yeah, a little, I would say, like, to a degree, like, there's probably a little bit of wasted potential there,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But still pretty cool. In certain regards, I think it could have been better for sure.
All right.
Well, I guess you ready to talk about A Quiet Place?
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah.
All right, David. So, what do you think?
All right. So
better than Ungentlemanly Warfare?
Oh, no, not at all. This is one of the worst movies I've seen this year.
Yeah.
I have a list.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So you have A Quiet Place, and you have A Quiet Place Part 2, which happened basically a day apart from each other. Like it goes direct. Like the Part 2 picks up directly where the first one left off. I don't think you ever even needed to do a Part 2, let alone giving us what they're saying is like I think the tagline for this was like, see what happened on day one or whatever, and it's literally like there's nothing interesting about it. It's some aliens fall out of the sky, kill a bunch of people, and then we're going to follow around a character who is connected to another character that's connected to some people that are in the second movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just, it feels, it looks all right. I mean, from like a cinematography standpoint, like
it's just slow.
Yeah.
The pacing is,
oh my gosh,
the pacing's really
terrible. a lot of the scenes you're just like, why are we doing this? Like it feels like it meanders. In fact, it's not like a feeling. It's like it does meander. Like it's like it's like they didn't have they needed to make this and they didn't have an idea of what to do.
Yeah, I thought the cat was a dumb prop.
And the the cat causes so many problems.
Yeah,
Like the logic in the movie. Like I understand like loving your pet, but this cat nearly gets every character killed in the movie. There's not a lot of character development in it. The main actress, she has like cancer, I guess. I don't know if it's ever specifically stated that she does, but I'm pretty sure she has cancer. And then like she's just sad and has a cat and wants to go eat pizza where her dad used to play piano. Like that's her character.
yeah, that's it.
There's not a whole lot else to her. She kind of has like a hero moment like right at the end, but it's like not really that satisfying because she's not. I mean, I guess you could like she is selfish, but at the same time, it's not pronounced enough that like her sacrifice means a whole lot at the end. And then that's not even how she dies, right? And that was always kind of like that can be like an interesting thing, right? It's like okay, she has cancer. She's clearly not going to make it at this point because there's no like everything's fallen apart. Like there's not a way to really keep her alive long term. And so it is an interesting idea of like, okay, well, what's that like? And you could take that and be like, well, let's make a movie that's set on day one. You're seeing the fallout. You're seeing how a lot of characters react to it. So you're getting kind of this B plot about like, and it's pretty typical for these kind of movies, but there's a lot you can do with it. Where like, you get to see kind of how people potentially would react in this kind of situation in the way that they would either try to like rise above or become the worst version of themselves. And this whole time she's having this sort of like existential thing going on in her life about like, did I live a good life? Kind of like, honestly like Viserys, like he has those moments in that where he is slowly being eaten alive by by leprosy, and he's contemplating his life and how he really did. And so you can do these things again in other stories, in other contexts, right? And
Right.
they just don't do any of that. It's all of the characters are pretty flat. They seem like they're
the
setting.
British guy. That's his only character note is that
he's British. Yeah, he's British and he's a scaredy cat basically, and he knows magic maybe.
Yeah.
And so the movie wants to act like all like certain scenes in this are very like heavy and there's a lot of weight to the different and you're just like I'm bored and like doing it doesn't do the whole now there's like tons of these monsters thing because these things are pretty OP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm kind of over the whole like silent, oh, the movie's really quiet. Like it feels really gimmicky now, especially because we've seen it done so poorly at this point. Definitely a hard pass if anyone was interested in seeing this. I think it's pretty terrible. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add to this one.
No, I was just gonna say that I thought it was kind of interesting and ironic how the main character is a cancer patient dying in hospice who was somehow able to walk extremely long distances in Manhattan, swim flooded subway stations, run extremely fast while carrying her cat.
Oh yeah, that's fair, bro. They get so lucky all the time in it. It's just. Oh my gosh. And just like dumb stuff where like her. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
No, you go ahead. No.
There's like one moment in particular where like she runs away from the British guy and she's outside like a bookstore, like reading a book, and she's pretty weak and he wants to help her up or whatever, and because she refuses his help, they almost get killed.
Yep.
Like it's one of those things that's like I could understand too, and I don't think the biggest problem with it is the movie just doesn't really seem like it knew what it wanted to do. Like you can do
Yep.
this, you can make it work really well, but you have to have an idea and like a follow through for your setup and your payoff for the movie, and it just doesn't seem like they really. It was like we kind of need to do this, and we need to try to connect it to the franchise, as even though it's pretty weak the way that they did it. And yeah, you're right. It just I don't know.
No,
Just
I
doesn't work.
agree.
Doesn't
And
work.
it's the only focus of the entire thing is that cat. I mean, I hate to
Yeah.
repeat that, but that's really the only thing they focus on because there's really nothing else going on.
And there's nothing.
Um,
There's no sort of like. There's no meaning behind that either. Really,
yeah.
the cat's just the emotional support animal that almost gets them killed quite a few times. Um, it's not a very smart cat, you know, and somehow it just keeps kind of showing up. Like I'm like, man, I've known a lot of cats in my life. I was like, they would be long gone in a situation like that. They wouldn't be coming
Yeah.
back. They're not coming to find you. Are you kidding me?
They're like, oh,
Come
looks like you're
on.
on your own, homie.
I'll take the cancer patient sprinting across New York. The cat, it's just not believable.
Dude, and then I love too how the whole premise is you're supposed to be freaking quiet because of the monsters, right? Yet the two main characters are talking all the
Oh,
freaking
I
time.
know. And like
And
whimper, like just weird stuff where it's like, I don't know if I fully believe that if that was a thing between like you living and dying, that you're gonna be like all the time. It's like, dude, you're gonna shut up. You're not gonna say anything. Like if that's the thing that keeps you alive. Also, I am not one of the things I don't like about this franchise is like there's not definitive rules surrounding these creatures.
yeah,
Because sometimes you can be quiet enough and you're good, and then other times if you like take a step, regardless, you're done. You know,
yes, it's weird.
they play fast and loose with the rules for sure.
They do. What about that one scene where he starts reading poetry to her?
Oh, dude.
Like that really, I just don't know if poetry would be my go-to move in a time of interplanetary warfare.
If I had tried to go see this in theaters, I probably would have walked out and asked for my money back.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
So
I should see what it has on Rotten Tomatoes. Let me see. Let's see what the audience and
the critic scores are.
and the critics. Okay, so the critic score is 86%.
Bro, come on.
And then the audience score is 73%. So not too far off.
Yeah, that's still too high. I don't know what people.
Yes.
I would love to know what people saw in this movie because
It got reviewed bomb in a positive way.
maybe. I mean, I don't get it, guys. Like I don't know. Critics, whatever. But like, it's so funny with the audience score. Sometimes I'm like, what? Like, what was it there? Like, was it just cool to see the aliens? Like, I'm always kind of curious what people, what they kind of get out of that motivates them to give it a higher score. Sweet.
All right. Well, what else you got for me?
Okay. I think we'll save Deadpool till the end. That only seems fair.
Good choice.
Long Legs. Now, do you know anything about this movie?
Ooh, is that the horror movie?
So it's horror is not the word that
Thriller?
I would use. Yeah, it's more of like a serial killer. Trying to find a good. Okay, so we'll leave it here on this specific image because we can talk about it from the perspective of the way that this movie was also marketed.
It's a crime horror.
Yeah. It's like a serial killer. It's got a little bit of horror element to it, but to be honest, it's not. First of all, it's not that scary. Great atmosphere. Cinematography's great. Nicolas Cage is in it. He plays the title character, Longlegs. And the whole concept behind it is that he's basically a serial killer, and he's somehow getting into these people's houses and making it look like there was no like breaking and entering, and how he's like basically, I don't want to give too much away, but like how he somehow has this ability to do all of these things that are like stumping the FBI, and how these like serial murders are happening. It starts out pretty strong, I think. So I would say this. I think like probably the first 2/3 of the movie is pretty strong. Great atmosphere. It is pretty tense. Nicolas Cage, like his biggest problem is that he goes a little too full Nicolas Cage in this towards the end, where it goes from having that very like tense feeling to where you start snickering a little bit because like Nicolas Cage is kind of a meme. It's not the scariest movie of the decade. I saw Talk to Me last year. That movie's far scarier. I don't really get like freaked out in horror movies, so it's a little hard for me to gauge that. But as far as like atmosphere, the themes, and the way that like everything is told, and the kind of story that you're telling, I found Talk to Me to be a much like more core fear for people, I think, and like for myself too, because it's sort of about like this, that movie's like got like a very like spiritual element to it, and there's something that like hits home pretty hard with that versus like serial killers.
Right.
But this has a lot of stuff in it that's like some of it's like the music and the way that the movie's scored. It adds a certain like emphasis to sort of like the bone chilling nature of it. But ultimately it's really not that scary. And it doesn't. I don't think in like second viewings that it's really gonna hold up that well. Because once you kind of know what's going on or whatever, I don't think the movie is quite as strong as that first watch up until you start kind of realizing what's going on. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to spoil it. But I'm just saying a lot of that because I do want to have the little spoiler warning in there before I just in case people are curious to watch it. So I'll preface the spoiler because we're going to get into it right now. I'll preface the spoiler by saying one of the things. This is a problem I have with like writing across the board. And I think I had mentioned it last week to you, and this was one of the movies that was on my mind when I said this. I don't think there's a lot. I don't think that movies are like as clever as they need to be when it comes to stuff like this. They tend to write this stuff in a way that sort of cops them out of having to think of it like an interesting way of these things working. I don't know if you've ever read And Then There Were None. It's this murder mystery by Agatha Christie that came out like decades ago.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. About these people and they all go to this island together. Someone invited them all there, and they start getting killed off one by one. That has like a pretty clever twist in it. It's not like, oh my gosh, the craziest thing ever, right? Like that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm hoping is that the writers are actually like, hey, let's really like, how do we end this and really make it poignant for the cast or like the people watching it, right?
Right.
Spoilers. Basically the main antagonist of this movie is Satan.
Okay.
And it's magic. Like he's basically using magic to kill people. So that he isn't actually killing them. And it's the most like, bro, it deflated the movie so hard for me. I remember because I went to go see it with a friend of the show, Justin, who's been on before. We went to go see it. It's probably been about a month at this point. Because we like these kind of movies, and it was something that was like, oh yeah, like haven't been in the movies in a while. Let's go see. Like we heard a lot of really good things about this. Like man, maybe this will really like top my list for movies for the year. It'd be awesome. Like Nicolas Cage, maybe it's one of those ones that really like pushes through for him. And really, when you get to the last 30 minutes of it, it's like, oh, that's what it is. And it just
kind of a letdown.
It is. Just kind of being like, she's like solving this mystery and she's trying to figure out all this stuff, and there's like, he's making these like weird dolls that he's like gifting to people, and it's like, how do those, like, what's going on with these dolls, like, what does that have to do with these the men in the family eventually like turning on the family and like killing them, and like, whoa, what's happening, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, it's Satan, it's magic. He's like, I think Longlegs is supposed to be like Beelzebub or something like that. And I was just sort of like, oh. I was like, okay. We left the theater and I was like, bruh, I was like, come on. It really deflated my thoughts on the movie by the time, because it's, dude, I mean, like, that the first it's an interesting kind of like case study in a movie like this, because like the first 2/3 of the movie are pretty solid. It's got like a pretty like strong opening, and I think the cast is pretty good. It's a little slow in some points. The pacing, yeah, you could probably argue that the pacing's not quite where it needs to be. Not like some other stuff. I mean, like, it's way better than A Quiet Place for sure. But ultimately, like, I left and I was like, all right, moving on.
I hear you on
Just
that.
really, it's one of those movies that, like, the end. This kind of movie requires the ending to be really strong, and it just isn't. And I was like, oh, we're doing the magic thing, like, and I guess part of it is that, like, I'm so sick of that because of Star Wars, and that everything in Star Wars is like a cop-out at this point, where they're like, oh, we can just get out of this scenario because people can read people's minds, or, oh, this person's not really going to die because of the healing technology. Like, and that's what it comes down to, is like, it's kind of magic, but it's like the writers are like, well, we need to write ourselves out of this situation, so it's just this magic-y type thing. You're like, oh, okay, that's not great, So that was Longlegs. Really can't. Unfortunately, I cannot really recommend it. If you're like into like cinematography and sort of like this style of movie or whatever, it's probably worth a watch from that perspective. But like from that like narrative and it just being like a strong movie overall, I just can't recommend it. At least wait till it's on some sort of streaming platform. It won't be long, I don't think.
Yeah.
Definitely not the scariest movie of the decade. That's a ridiculous statement.
Well, speaking of true crime, I watched True Detective season 1 with a few of the episodes, not all of them, but a few of the episodes with my keeper this past weekend, and it's just like those type of movies and shows that aren't my typical cup of tea. It's not that I can't recognize there's good aspects of the movie and how people can get enveloped into the story. That's actually what ended up happening to me. Is I was primarily just on my phone, and then I kept overhearing everything, and I got hooked in. And but it's just they're so heavy.
They're very heavy. I
take it on. What's it called? It's very cathartic for me. And I think way too much about it. And so that's why I steer away from them, is because they're too heavy for me personally, emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely can
like
be.
A little baby, but they are.
Did you ever see
poor Joseph. You can't watch a movie.
No, not Passengers. What is the name of that movie? It's got Hugh Jackman. Sorry, give me 1 second. I just want to.
No, you're fine.
I love this movie, and for whatever reason, I always forget the name of it. It's the craziest thing.
I hate it when that happens. Hang on. But yeah, it's so funny to me. Like, it's just.
Oh, Prisoners. Man. Have you ever seen Prisoners?
Oh yes, that's a good.
I love Prisoners.
Yeah.
That movie in particular, because it's in that vein. That one works so well for me. As heavy as it is, because I agree with you. Like, that stuff really, like, it can definitely like weigh on you. It's like, it's sometimes hard to watch stuff like that because you're like, man, it's been a long day. I just kind of want to relax and watch something good, and then it's like, oh, this is a little too much for me today.
Yeah.
Do we need to talk about Borderlands? You want to wait on that?
We can wait.
You want to wait? Because
Maybe.
I'm gonna probably watch it at some point.
Yeah.
At
I
this point,
checked my movie theater, and my movie theater isn't even playing it. They're
I'm not
playing
surprised.
Deadpool, and they're playing what's her name? New movie, Blake Lively.
Blake Lively's new movie.
It ends with us.
I want to see it.
Me too.
Chris Gore recommended it.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. That's awesome. I told Kayla about it this past weekend. I didn't realize.
He was about to get into spoilers for it because apparently there's like a pretty like big turn about halfway through the movie, and I was like, crap, maybe I'll go see that. If it's, I might go see that this week. Yeah. So apparently they're like, between the two of them, they're dominating the theater right now. Deadpool hit $1 billion. I told you it was gonna, I sent you that text message. I told you it was gonna hit. Yeah. I went to the theater to see it on opening night. The entire theater parking lot was packed. I go to that theater semi regularly, and I never see it like that. Never see, like, we struggled to find a place to park. And I sent Joseph a message like right after that. I was like, this movie's probably gonna make $1 billion. And solely based on that, I was like, this movie's probably going to do it. Now, it doesn't help Disney in the long run, and I'm sure it's going to, we'll get into it. I'm sure they're going to learn the wrong lessons. And before we get into it, I do want to talk about one more movie.
Okay.
We have enough time. We got enough time. All right, so there is one more movie so the way that I, like, pick this stuff is essentially, like, I just go on Amazon and sorry, I'm looking for like a good shot from this. Come on now. Give me a good shot. Oh, that's pretty good. I go on Amazon and I look for just like whatever happens to be the stuff that they're promoting as far as like new releases. For stuff that I just didn't get to go see in the theater. And rent stuff or don't rent it. It kind of depends on, what it is and how confident I am in it. That's how I found that movie Snack Shack, which I think at this point, surprisingly, is still sitting at number 1 for me as far as movies this year.
Interesting.
I know. I think what I'm going to do, because I had Letterboxd pulled up, I'm putting everything on my list in order of kind of how I feel about it right now, and whatever's in like the top 5 or so, I'm going to go back and rewatch and then kind of be like, actually, I think this might have been it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's, but it's sitting at the top right now, which is really funny because it's just this little indie coming-of-age movie. It's like
I really like coming of age stories.
Yeah, it speaks to me, and I always love when they're done right. Like they're always fun, and the characters are always so like interesting, and just kind of it reminds you of childhood a little bit. So It's a little unfair, because it definitely hits at the nostalgia bone a little bit, but yeah. Anyway, so this last movie I wanted to talk about real quick is a movie out of Malaysia or India. It's kind of, so it's not Bollywood, because I think Bollywood's very specific to like a like music, and music has to be involved. You know what I mean?
Style.
Yeah, and forgive me for anyone out there who's really into this kind of stuff. It is not my forte. It's not my area. I think the only other thing that I've seen from that region is like RRR, which was like a pretty big hit. But this movie is just titled Kill. And it's like if okay, so don't take this as like a recommendation necessarily, but it's kind of like if the raid happened on a train. And that was kind of what got me to go, all right, I'll watch it. I like a lot of it. I think that there are, excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. I think that there are some things that Western audiences are going to find silly, like certain music editing choices. It it's got some like the tone of the movie is like strange in some places. So like it's pretty serious. Like so, the movie about I'd say probably about halfway through gets very violent. Like like it's kind of crazy in some moments how violent it is. But there's our main character, and he's in love with this girl, and they are trying to go. They're on their way somewhere. To be honest, I don't really remember. It's not that important. The idea being is that they both end up on this train together, and their relationship is like kind of secret, and we're never given a full reason why. Because when her father finds out that the two of them have had this secret relationship, he's sort of like, well, why didn't you just tell me that you were dating this guy that's basically a commando in the military? Like, it's a situation of like, oh, it seems like that's totally fine. Like, I'd be fine with you marrying someone like that. So it's a little strange, and like some of that stuff, I'm not sure if it's translation related or not.
Okay.
But it's not that important, because the basic premise of the story is that you have our main character. He ends up on the train with the girl that he's in love with, and a bunch of bandits get on the train, and they're trying to kidnap her and her father, because her father's like really rich. He owns like a transportation company in the country, and like they basically are like, oh yeah, he's like worth a lot of money. So if we kidnapped him, we could probably get a pretty big ransom for him. Now I'm gonna spoil it. Well, do you want me to spoil it, or you want me to?
No.
You want me to? Okay. So, and because it's kind of necessary. So there's a couple interesting choices. Some I'm not a big fan of. I think the pacing's not very good. Movie's too long. It's too long. A movie about a guy murking bandits on a train should not be almost 2 hours. There's a lot of stuff in it that's just sort of like, you probably could have cut this. Like, it's just stuff that's just not necessary. And it's weird because the pacing at the beginning is pretty good. Like, they really like get to the train and get on the train and establish everything pretty quick, and then start kind of getting into the action. But there's these stretches throughout the rest of the movie where they just completely slow down the action in order to do some stuff that's like just not necessary. Other than that, like, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in it. The title card for this movie, Joseph, is 45 minutes into the movie. So, like, you know how isn't that? I just didn't think they were gonna do it, and then 45 minutes into the movie, the title card pops up, and I was like, oh, I was like, that's interesting. And then what's interesting about it, and why like I don't necessarily hate it, is because that is sort of like about 45 minutes into the movie is the turning point for it. And they make a very, I think, bold decision that I don't think you would typically see in Hollywood traditionally, and they kill his love interest. And they don't just kill her. She gets stabbed like multiple times and then thrown off the train into another train. And it's like, I just like, because like she gets like stabbed once, and you're like, oh, all right. And then again, and you're like, well, it's Holly. Like, it's a movie. She can probably survive that. And then he stabs her in the neck, and I was like, oh, she's dead. I was like, she's really dead. And then they do that, and I'm like, oh. I was like, dang, they committed. And so, like, I kind of have to applaud them from, like, that perspective, because so often with movies like this, it's like, oh, like, okay, he's just saving his love interest. Like, the action's cool. Like, great.
Right.
But it really is what like that turning point is, and it kind of leads into some of the better stuff in the movie. Like I said, I think if they had fixed the pacing a little bit and cut it down, probably another 15 minutes or so, maybe even a little bit more, I think you could have made this about an hour and 20 minutes, and it would have been really, really solid.
Really tight.
Yeah,
a tight script.
I think that the action is pretty good. There's a few times you can kind of tell the choreography's not great, but like typically willing to forgive a little bit of that. Like, it just it works in a lot of ways and it doesn't work in a lot of ways. And then where it's strongest is really strong. There's a scene where like because like the basically the main character, he's like trying not to like for whatever reason, I don't it might be like a cultural thing, but like he's trying not to like kill these bandits, you know. Like he's kind of portrayed as like the upstanding, like heroic, like, oh, I'm gonna bring you to justice, we're gonna take you to jail, and then they like murder his fiance, and he's like, okay, no, you're all dead. And that's basically the rest of the movie. It's just like he's just absolutely murking all these guys, and like it definitely, I've seen this with Korea, South Korea, obviously, and it's been interesting to see India kind of get into the mix, and Japan's always been there a little bit, but there's places around the world that are taking sort of these interesting concepts from like the 80s and just different these things that like they're making like pure you would almost call it like pure cinema. Like they're not dealing in a lot of the problems that we have in the States right now with as Drinker would say, like The Message or like anything that you could go look at it and be like, what are y'all doing here? I'm almost like happy that the movie it's like faults are more like typical movie things than like they just like ruin these characters because they can't help themselves because they have to be, it's like they have to put the activism in or they have to do whatever. It doesn't really feel like that. And the movie's like really pro like military for the country, which is whatever.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I don't live there,
Right.
it's fun, but from that perspective, it is really interesting, and you're never really going to be able to get away with that from that in cinema. There's always going to be sort of that tilt in some way or another. It's just not like in your face. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think like it's maybe. There's probably some people out there that it's worth their time. People seem to like it from what I can tell. But you know how we are. Like I have to kind of go into the stuff that's like probably could have been a little bit shorter. Like we were saying, it's like could have tightened it up pretty good, and I think it would have been potentially like something that I was raving about this year. But I think some of the slower moments, and they do a lot of things that just really aren't necessary. From like the pacing and they kind of do some stuff with the bandits. It's like they do this stuff where like some of the bandits will die and they're like all kind of related, like their family or whatever. So they'll have these scenes of like the bandits all like crying over each other, and I'm like, guys, you don't need this because they do it a lot. It's one thing if you kind of like establish that at one point, but I don't need to see it like 3 times.
Right. That's funny.
So, and there's some other cool stuff in it. Like he kills a bunch of the bandits and he like strings them up in the train to like mess with them psychologically. And it's probably one of the coolest scenes in it because they open the door and there's just like rows of them like hanging down the train. And I was like, that's shot really well. So yeah, it's got some cool stuff in it for sure. But okay, I need you for like 10 more minutes so we can talk about Deadpool. Right. I'll make it short because I feel like everyone's talked about Deadpool to death, but we haven't really had a chance to talk about it, and I do want to, it opens up future conversations as far as Marvel is concerned.
Okay.
So I'm sure by this point, you know everything about that. There's no way you haven't just been completely spoiled.
I
on the
know
movie.
everything about it. Yeah. You're good to go on my end.
It's
not a movie I would go and see anyway. It's not my kind of movie.
It is very funny. I think that if people were being honest, they would tell you that it definitely feels like Disney gave them, because there's a joke in the movie about like cocaine and that cocaine can't really be a topic in the movie. Right. And it's like I went back, I rewatched the first one again recently, and I need to go back and rewatch the second one again because I haven't seen the second one since it was in theaters. And I just don't remember a ton about it, except some of the funny stuff that they do, as far as like the way he sort of, it's like Ryan Reynolds apologizing for like X-Men Origins Wolverine. and like what Deadpool was in that. So there's some, some silly stuff with that, and ultimately that's what it is. It's like it's just a silly movie. The plot is pretty awful, and there's some stuff with like the way that they characterize certain people show up. I think it's in one of the trailers. So it's not even really a spoiler, but like X-23's in it,
Yep.
and the way that they like handle that is odd, and then they leave out one of her lines. She says something like, "You were never the right guy," and then later on, the line gets repeated again, but it's added on where she says, "You were never the right guy until you were," or something along those lines, which completely changes the context of that conversation. And it felt like just a straight up mistake in the editing. Movie feels a little bit rushed, which I don't think you would be surprised by, because
No.
you know how the whole like timeline for this was crazy. Like the fact that this even came out this year was kind of crazy to me. But it seems like they really needed to get it out.
It does seem that way. They tried really hard to make it happen.
It unfortunately is going to cause a lot of problems moving forward, because they do this thing where Wolverine is the quote-unquote anchor being for his universe. And so the anchor being, when that person dies, and for whatever reason, at least this concept makes no sense. And that's why I'm saying it feels the script in particular just feels rushed, like they didn't really care. The problem is that some of these specific things are probably going to come up in other movies, and people are taking the specific things seriously as far as the rest of the MCU. IGN put out this article recently where they were like, "Who's the anchor being of the 616 or whatever," which is, I think, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's like, who cares? It's a stupid concept.
Yeah.
Like, you should be writing articles about why the anchor being doesn't make sense, because it's this idea that you have this anchor being. When they die, that world will eventually just disappear for whatever reason. But it's never fleshed out, and it doesn't make sense, because it's like, well, what was that world before that person was born? Like, what if your anchor being is like a normal human who lives for like 75 years? Does that world only exist for 75 years? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's an illogical concept, and it's infuriating only in the sense that like if this was somewhat isolated and it really didn't matter to the rest of the MCU at this point, it wouldn't even be worth talking. It's like dumb, but the problem is that the anchor being is now going to be something that they're going to use in future movies. Like, I guarantee it's not going to just be something that disappears. It's annoying.
They should have just, I think, with Deadpool, like really wiped everything from the multiverse and just went back to like renewing it.
He should have, and maybe it's something that'll get to happen in the future. Maybe Kevin Feige will actually learn from it. But what I would love is just like, it's just like Deadpool kills the MCU.
Yeah.
And just in the like a bonkers way, he just like takes everybody out and completely resets the entire thing. They'll never do it, because that is way too edgy for them. You know?
Yeah.
They just wouldn't do it. The movie would make $1 billion. I guarantee you, Joseph. Like Deadpool, they got to be careful with it. Give it a few years. MCU's still not doing what it needs to be doing, and they go, we need a hard reset. They do another Deadpool movie, and they do Deadpool kills the MCU. Movie's gonna make $1 billion, if not more.
Yep.
And all you gotta, and all you gotta do is like have him. It's got to be a easy plot line. It doesn't. Deadpool has proved that you don't need like a crazy plot in order to like make a successful movie, because like Ryan Reynolds, like, just people love the character. That's what it is. They love Wolverine and they love Deadpool, and they love the two of them together, and they love them in all these antics, and most people really don't care how they get there, because the whole movie is the and then pretty much thing. It's like this thing happens, and then Deadpool does this, and then he goes and finds Wolverine, and then he does this. And the reason everyone loves it is because it's funny. I don't think it's 1, 2, 3 as far as the order of them being like good. I don't think this one's nearly as solid as really the first two are. And some of that again is that like Disney effect, where like they had to hold back on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's also like I'm a little over the CG blood thing. Like I miss practical effects, man.
Practical effects are the way to go.
Maybe I'm just like reaching like a boomer stage talking about this, but I miss practical effects. I miss like them actually taking the time to really do that because it adds like something to the movie, you know. Regardless, it's it is what it is. Some funny stuff in it, some good cameos, and it's like I was telling you before, like it's really cathartic because Ryan Reynolds just takes like all of these shots at Disney. It's a moment of like someone was actually paying attention. Someone was listening to the fan base being like,
"Yep,
a lot of this stuff is stupid." He takes
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, one of the best, I think, and it is very like meta in what it is. So it does, from like a long-term perspective, it probably doesn't matter as much, but it would be really cool to see as far as like where it goes. They bring back Wesley Snipes' Blade, which is like chef's kiss. Like just, I don't know how he managed to get him. I don't know what they did and how they convinced him. But he's one of the best parts of the movie. So is Gambit. They bring back Elektra and she's in it and it's fine and it's kind of funny to see her, but like that movie was terrible. Like Elektra was an objectively awful movie. But they brought her in. It's kind of cool that she's there or whatever.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing about it, and it's really the only thing that I would care to see, like if this launches anything, if they give Wesley Snipes another Blade movie, just because like Ryan Reynolds is like pushing for it, and so to give him one more movie would be maybe one more movie. I mean, Wesley Snipes is what in his 60s or something like that, so it'd be
that'd be cool.
But it would be pretty cool if they're just like, screw, we've been trying to get a Blade movie made forever. We're not doing this anymore. We're just gonna like go back to the drawing board and just do a Blade movie in the style of what Wesley Snipes did. I can't remember if it was Ryan Reynolds or not, but one of the interesting things is that people have been talking about is that like Wesley Snipes and Blade was really the thing that gave people the taste of superhero movies, of like comic book movies, which is really interesting considering it was like an R-rated movie. But that was that launching point that kind of that really allowed for X-Men to happen and Marvel to get to where it was. You know what I mean? Like he was the grandfather of like all of that. And so I appreciate, there is something that I do really appreciate about Ryan Reynolds kind of like giving him that respect and being like, bro, you really did start the thing, you know?
Right.
That was really a point in time where it was like, there you go. Now we got X-Men. Now we got Spider-Man. Now we got this, you know? It wasn't all great, and, you know, Blade Trinity is not a very good movie. And,
but propelled everything else.
Sure. You know, lots of turmoil on the set of that, on Blade Trinity. But it would be really cool for them to just do one more Wesley Snipes movie. And he's got one of the best lines in the movie, because they're going to attack, like, the main thing so that Wolverine and Deadpool can get back to their world. Mm-hmm. And Wesley Snipes, you know, comes out of the sunroof of this van, and he's like, "There's only ever gonna be one Blade," and he like pulls out a rocket launcher and shoots it at
I saw that.
It's so good, and it's like it's the reason that works. It you know, we could talk about this for a really long time, but like that's how one of the ways that you do fan service properly. You're showing respect to something that came before, that a lot of people, no matter how you really feel about the Blade movies, like there is a certain amount of nostalgia and respect that people have for that stuff. And him coming back and not treating it as like a meme or like a big joke, like, look at Wesley Snipes, he's Blade again. It's like, no. He is. And then, you know, he says that, and then Deadpool just like looks at directly at the screen, like, yeah, there's only one Blade, guys. You know, like, y'all have been trying forever to get this Blade movie made, and it's not working. Like, there's so much that goes into that. And there's a lot of that throughout the movie. Unfortunately, the TVA still exists, and there are a few things in it that are just like they like don't work. I loved Channing Tatum. There's been a lot of talk about this. I loved Channing Tatum as Gambit. It's a lot of fun. He's hilarious, and just does he just eats up the camera every scene. He's only in the movie for maybe 10 minutes, maybe a little longer than that. But it was just it was really cool to see. He's like using his magic cards to like blow people up and all sorts of stuff, and like it's crazy because like I don't know if we'll ever actually get like a Channing Tatum Gambit movie, and I don't even know if I really want that. But part of me is like, I don't know, man. Like at this point, it's like I almost want him to go back to like the Wild West of it, and like let's just try everything. Like let's see what sticks. Let's go crazy with it and stop with this like cinematic universe nonsense because it's just gotten out of hand. It'll never happen. Right. I mean, I don't know. Marvel's trying to turn things around. I know you saw the stuff about like Doctor Doom and like what it just. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, man. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't know either. They're just desperate, man.
It's what it feels like, right?
This movie helps, but I think going forward, it's not enough. And we'll get once the next one comes out, we'll get right back to the same stuff. And it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot to turn this cruise ship around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because Agatha.
It takes more than one movie.
Yeah, Agatha is next. The TV show.
Oh, yeah. And then it's going to be Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier's next movie.
And then I think I could. Ironheart is at some point soon, and then Fantastic Four is 25. Which I'll go see Fantastic Four. I'm curious, right? Like, Fantastic Four does not have a good track record at all. In fact, you could say it has a terrible track record. So that's going to be really interesting. And then who knows if we're ever getting this Blade movie, this Mahershala Ali. I'm surprised he hasn't just dropped from the movie at this point.
Right.
Like, guys, I got stuff to do. Like, I don't know how like the contract for that works, but it's insane that with as much time as it's taken to get this done, that they just haven't shelved it completely. So yeah, and I can't remember. I don't know what else is next for that. Oh, they have like secret, like they're bringing back the Russos for the Doctor Doom movie in 26, I think. So we'll see.
We'll see.
A lot of rumors about that, like him not really being Doctor Doom, and then he's just a alternate Tony Stark, and that's how they're going to bring Tony Stark back. So lame, bro. Yeah, they just like gosh, I'm just so tired of it. Like it's time to reset. It's time to move on. Is. You can keep Deadpool, you can keep Wolverine if you want to. Let them be sort of like those fourth wall breaking characters. Maybe, dude, one of the most interesting things about it is they brought Henry Cavill in. He has a cameo in the movie as a Wolverine, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. A lot of interesting like teases that I think a lot of people wished they had fleshed out a little bit more. Like they tease like Wolverine versus Hulk. And I'm sure there's some other stuff that I'm forgetting at this point, but it's fun, it is probably the best thing that Marvel's done since No Way Home. Am I forgetting anything? No Way Home was the last one we liked, right? There's not something in between that was like
no, there's not.
Okay. It's the best. It's definitely the best thing since No Way Home. Obviously, it's got its problems. I had problems with No Way Home as well, but like. It's
a solid movie.
Yeah, it hits a lot of points of just being like, I laughed a bunch and I had fun, and yeah, there's problems, but at the same time, like I knew what I was going to see, Yeah. It sucks that it gets like, it's got a lot of baggage from the MCU, unfortunately.
It feels like it's one of those movies, as bad as I hate to say this, to where you're not really going for the narrative. You're just going for the comedic bits.
Oh yeah. It's straight up like seeing Deadpool
as
and
bad
Wolverine.
As it is to say that.
Yeah, but it's exactly what it is. You're going to see Deadpool and Wolverine in goofy situations. You're there for like all the wacky cameos and the way that like you do get subverted by like who certain characters are because they've played other characters between Marvel and Fox, and it's just a lot of stuff like that. And then like the jokes about like the MCU and like how they're like screwing things up and all that kind of stuff. So Yeah, man. I mean, at this point, it doesn't really matter whether I recommend it or not because I'm, it's made $1 billion already. Didn't take long, so we'll see how the legs are past $1 billion. I'm really curious. All right. Well, I've kept you long enough, Joseph. Thank you for
Always. I wish I could
indulging me.
say later. It's just
no, you're good. I got to be up early too. All right. Well, thank you to everyone who shows up for the live stream, and to everyone who listens to this later on in the podcast or on YouTube, wherever you may be listening to it. We'll be back next week talking about something.
Yes, we will.
I got some more movies I got to catch up on. Lord of the Rings.
Probably be some news too.
Yeah, Rings of Power isn't too far away. Who knows, dude? Who knows what's gonna happen?
Don't forget. I have. I'm going on vacation from the 31st through the 8th. But if I can work something out on the 30th, I'll let you know.
Sweet. Yeah, we gotta try to do the Lord of the Rings early.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure
it out.
Comes
out on the 29th, so I would maybe be able to either do. I don't see how we would be able to do it that night if it comes out. That I don't know what the time is.
Yeah.
So it would have to be
the 30th,
Friday evening.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't have any time the 31st through the 8th.
Okay, well, let's plan for Friday evening. We'll get it knocked out. Sweet, dude. All right. Well, thank you all so much for listening to episode 181 of The Underground. We'll see y'all next week. And until then, take it easy.
See ya.